I want to take a look at our expectations when it comes to therapies. I had a conversation with my daughter the other day that led me to this realization. She asked me, what are the long-term effects of green light? And I said, I don't know. Why do you ask? And she opened up a way of thinking about how we experience different therapies. Good, bad. There are two different axes. We're going to call this short term. We're going to call this long term. And so the way we experience different therapies, we understand that things that are feeling bad in the short term are going to be good in the long term. So what fits there? Well, I did my exercise and I was sore for 3 days and it was a big pain in the butt with my Russian twists and my Bulgarian squats and whatever it was. It felt bad in the short term, but it builds our health in the long term. What else goes in there? The ice bath, which is terrible in the short term. You feel like you're going to die and it causes pain. But in the long term, it's good for your health, your metabolic health, your mental health. You're suffering at first, but you have this expectation that it's going to be good for you. On the other hand, things that feel good in the short term, we know they're not good in the long term. What would we put down there? Ibuprofen, for example, takes your fever away. It relieves your pain. But you know you shouldn't be taking ibuprofen every day because it will lead to gastrointestinal bleed outs, for example. There are often things that make us feel good right away, but they come with long-term consequences. Pain relievers fit into this category. Opium, NSAIDs, you get the idea. There are very few things that are both good in the short term and good in the long term. We just don't have experience with these things that feel good right away and are good for us in the long term. And because there's so few things, we tend to think, well, that's where placebos go. Placebos are wonderful. They have no adverse side effects. They feel good right away. They don't do you any long-term harm. So if it's good in the short term and good in the long term, then it must be a placebo. There's another category. I'm going to call this the playing with fire category. And these are the things that they might feel good right away. And they might have some long-term benefits. But you know not to overdo it. You have a glass of wine. That feels good. And there's even studies that say, hey, you're drinking in moderation. That can have some long-term benefits. So in this zone where short-term good, long-term good, I call it the playing with fire. 1 steak, good for you. 4 steaks, you feel sick. As long as you don't do too much or go too long, then there are some things that feel good, that are good for you, and they're not placebos. You just got to be careful not to overdo it. And then down in this category, we know that there are things that feel bad and are bad for us. We call them poisons. And when we're talking about hormetic responses to poisons, we can fit them up in this category. But when we overdo it, again, we're playing with fire. We can stick something that we thought was going to feel good and be good down in this category of just, it's bad. So where does green light therapy fit in? If it feels good in the way it relieves pain, and it is good in the long term, does that mean it's just a placebo? Or is it one of those things where it feels good and it can be good in the long term, but we shouldn't overdo it? As long as you don't get too much green light, then you're probably okay. Or is it one of those pain relievers like opium or ibuprofen that feels good in the short term but comes with negative long-term consequences. The fact is, we don't know. There aren't real longitudinal studies on the long-term effects of green light therapy. Here's what I suspect. It is forest light. It is the healing phototherapy effects of being in the forest, the environment to which we are evolutionarily adapted to expect. Now, you shouldn't have green light on 24 hours a day, and in that sense, it sort of fits into this category that you don't want to overdo it. You need your darkness. You need light during the day. You need the contrast. But it would be really hard to overdo it with something as natural and healthy as green light. Our advice says, when the light is powerful, keep your eyelids shut. But the other reason for keeping your eyelids shut, not just so that you reduce the impingement of light into your eye, is to shut out all the other wavelengths. When you're having a migraine headache or any type of pain, typically bright lights will make the pain worse. But green is the exception. It is green light that is dominant in the forest. And the forest has been shown through a practice called forest bathing, just an hour a week. It is shown to speed healing, improve mood, improve overall general well-being. Not everybody can get out to the forest for an hour a week. I live in Phoenix. It takes me 2 hours just to drive to the forest. What the green lamp does is bring the forest to you. And if you're using it for more than an hour a week, maybe there's a more serious underlying condition to consider, but we don't know that it's unhealthy. There was a study at University of Arizona where people were asked to use the green light 1 to 2 hours a day, every day, in a darkened room or a closet, where it was the only wavelength that they were exposed to, but they were instructed not to look straight at it, to only allow it to enter their eyes indirectly. They experienced an 80% reduction in the frequency of headaches. So in this indirect, low-intensity environment, even an hour or 2 hours a day was beneficial. What can we say about a more powerful lamp that we use directly through the eyes, even with the eyes shut to block out all the other wavelengths? I'm not sure. We haven't done the study. It is natural. It is healthful. But if you begin to experience deleterious consequences, if you're no longer getting a benefit, then stop doing it.